Hey, what's up guys? Dxanex here, and today I'm going to be doing an in-depth review of the Sony MDR-Z1R. This is the new flagship headphone from Sony. Flagship meaning that this is the top-of-the-line headphone that they manufacture right now. The top-shelf, top-level headphone from Sony. I'm going to start off saying right now that as of this time, this is the best sounding closed headphone I've ever heard. But we'll get to the sound in a second. First we'll do a quick unboxing, and then I'll talk about the construction here, which is also top-level stuff. So let's just rip into these bad boys right now, okay? So right out of the gate, I have to say, I mean, this packaging is insanely heavy. You'd think this is like a Xbox One or something. It's very heavy. So we'll crack this open here. Let's see what we got inside. It comes in a bag, and I guess just to make it a little easier to take out of the box. Let's move that out of the way. Alright, so we got a big old bag here. Inside the bag is this giant case, leather-bound case. And man, your whole room is going to smell like leather as soon as you take this out of the box. Yeah, I like it. Nice embroidered Sony logo here on this leather case. And your clasp right here says MDR-Z1R, and it's got a nice satisfying little click. Oh yeah. Alright, and here you are. There you go. So it's a very bold presentation, especially from a company like Sony. This is a big beefy box, and these headphones just look very classy sitting in this pillow casing here. Not unlike the Sennheiser HD800, but this almost takes it to a whole new level. This little plate has your serial number right there. The serial numbers are also on the headphone, which I'll get to in a bit. My set is in the mid-2000s. Originally, the MSRP was $22.99. At the time of this video, I have seen the prices start to go down a little bit. I've seen them go for as low as $1,600. I imagine they'll probably land at around $1,500. If Sony continues to manufacture these, they may end up not manufacturing a whole lot of these, and they could become rare. Just like Sony's previous flagship headphone, the Sony R10, which is a woodcup headphone that they made in the 90s. They stopped making them and they're very hard to find now. I've seen them go all the way up to like $6,000. I actually was fortunate enough to hear the R10, but it was years ago, and I can't really comment too much on the sound because it was a brief listening. All I remember is that it had some of the best mids I've ever heard. Are the mids as good on the Z1R? Not really sure. I wish I could A/B them. I probably never will be able to. I don't really remember if the bass was all that crazy or impressive. The bass on these is crazy and impressive. So right here, this is all of your accessories and documentation. So let's just roll this out right here. It's a nice trifold envelope made with some sort of fabric. So in this pocket right here, you've got your documentation and your warranty information. And you do get two different cables. So in this first pocket, you've got your balanced connector right here. And then in this pocket right here, you've got your standard 1/8 inch cable here. The balanced cable it comes with is a 4.4 millimeter plug called a Pentagon plug. It's a 5-pole plug. Now this will work in balanced mode on different digital audio players like Sony's new Walkmans and different Astel and Kern DAPs. And then this cable is the standard 3.5 millimeter plug, and it's terminated with 2.5 millimeter stereo plugs. As you can see, they coil up nicely and stay in place. These are oxygen-free, silver-plated copper. The cables are made in China. Considering that the headphones themselves were entirely made in Japan, I would have liked to have seen the same treatment with the cables. So the cables do feel a little bit cheaper. I just feel like if you're spending that much money on a pair of headphones, from top to bottom, it should be just the best quality possible. I do like how on the box though they say that these are high-res audio, and if you read the documentation it says that they're compatible with high-res audio. Literally every headphone on earth is compatible with high-res audio. It just depends on how they present that sound and how well they present it. So that really is just a lot of marketing speak right there. As long as your audio sounds really good and it's of high quality, your headphones are going to sound really good. So I guess it's time to jump right into the meat and potatoes now. This is definitely a luxurious looking headphone. Pretty minimal looking, actually. I love how the cups have this sort of shine on them. It almost looks like a starburst right there on the cup. And however you turn it in the light, it kind of just follows the pattern. The cups themselves are actually handmade in Japan. It's a wood pulp, so basically like a thick paper, like a paper mache. And then it's covered by this stainless steel mesh. Now I know y'all are thinking, what? paper cups. They use a Japanese technique of layering this paper over on top of each other, and they brush it over and over. And after they place that metal mesh on top of it, it feels incredibly sturdy. And the reason why they use this paper is to cut down on the resonance, but I'll get into that more when we talk about the sound. I've been using these for the better part of 2 months now at the office. I've hit my ring on it several times, but not a scratch, man. I mean, these things are built really well. All of the metal and the headband is made out of a nice, strong titanium covered in lambskin. All of this up here is a very soft lambskin, as well as the pads. They do heat up a little bit, but it's never been too bad for me. I just love how the plugs are just kind of seamlessly part of the headband design. Just kind of start right here and go right into the yoke. These are gold plugs, and they're all color-coded, so you know which one is your left and your right based on the ring color. And they just snap in just like that. And then they have a locking mechanism. You just screw these guys in just like that. You have your Sony logo on both sides. So have your red dot for right and your silver dot for left. These things are nice and quiet. They don't feel like they're gonna break at all. Trust me guys, these things just feel as nice as they look. The pads are quite easy to take off. One feature that I really like about these headphones, these have a little indentation right there. As you can see, there's a little indentation in the leather there of a circle and these 2 notches. That lets you know if it's locked or unlocked. And when it's in the unlocked position, of course, they come right off. And there's your driver right in there. You've got your Fibonacci-inspired grille there. Golden ratio, man. It's a thing of beauty. That is a magnesium driver down in there, and these drivers are angled. Now, the interesting thing is that normally drivers tend to be angled this way, but these are actually angled going this direction. So one thing that does happen with my ears is this part of the driver right here, you can see kind of sticking out, tends to rub up against the front of my ear just a little bit. And what I end up doing is actually having to turn them this way just a little bit, so towards the back of my head. These pads aren't super thick. They are angled pads, as you can see. It's not a ton of cushioning, but usually I don't have to adjust them too often, but it's worth noting. And to place them back on, of course, you just line up that little indentation right there with that line, and then turn it so that it clicks right into there. And now your pads are on. Those aren't going anywhere, man. I mentioned that your serial number are also on the headphones. They're actually inside the band right here, so you open it up, and your serial number is right down in there. This side does have your warranty information, and they even put Sony's Tokyo office's phone number right in there. That's kind of neat. Now, if you've watched my other video, the Sony Z1R versus the Focal Eliar, or Eliar, however you want to say it, you'll know that I find these things very comfortable. I mean, they just feel super luxurious. It's like sitting down in leather bucket seats in a luxury sports car. I mean, you almost feel like you're living the dream wearing these. There are 2 vent openings right up here, but I gotta say, these things do not leak sound much at all. I mean, these things are extremely isolating. And if you look down in there, you can see that only a small portion of that vent is actually open. So these things are totally isolating. When I wear these at work, I can't hear a single person talking to me. They usually have to tap me on the shoulder, even at reasonably low volumes of listening. So for studying, these things would be perfect, but if you need to hear someone talking to you, or if you got to hear telephone calls throughout the day, you might want to consider something a little different, because these things are going to cut you off from the world. But I mean, that's not necessarily a bad thing. All the lines just look very clean. Everything just looks super streamlined and slick. This is top shelf design. So now let's get into the sound. Right off the bat, the first thing that I noticed when putting these on was the ridiculously powerful bass. And from the mid bass all the way down to the sub bass, there's so much power to it that it's impossible to not be engrossed by it. I mean, these babies hit, and they hit damn hard, pardon my French. It's actually kind of crazy what Sony's managed to do with these drivers, because not only is it really detailed and really clean bass, the kind that you would get from a planar magnetic, it just has so much force behind it too, so much punch and impact. Man, nothing moves air quite like a dynamic driver. And I think that's why they went with the dynamic driver, because as good as the bass is on a lot of planar magnetic headphones, I've yet to hear one that hits as hard as these dynamic drivers. And it's super extended too, all the way into the sub-region. These things will dig as deep as your ears can even pick up. And it's truly a sensational feeling from headphones. But it's so impactful and so present that the first time you hear these, at least I almost felt like the bass was bass overload. It took me a while just to understand that, wow, I'm just hearing a lot of sub bass And after an hour or two, once you get over that initial holy crap the bass stage, you really start to hear how great everything else is as well, and you realize that these are actually really well-rounded headphones. The mid-range is also excellently detailed. It has a very smooth and fluid presentation. As I said at the beginning of the video, these things have almost like a papier-mâché cup surrounded by stainless steel mesh. Now, the reason why they went with this Japanese paper was to cut down on resonance. So overall, that gives it a very nice, polite sound. Nothing sounds harsh at all. It really cuts down on all those vibrations. So there isn't anything that ever sounds unnatural with these. But overall, I would say it leans a little bit to a darker signature, but I would say overall everything just sounds very polite. And what do I mean by polite? I mean everything has sort of a softness to it, fairly restrained. It's not mushy by any means, but there's nothing harsh at all about these. Now the mid-range isn't too forward, it's kind of pulled back just a little bit. It's almost like sitting in a very nice music hall, kind of in the middle row. You're not super close to anything at any given time. Everything always has the illusion of being pulled back just a little bit. Vocals sound very natural on these, very smooth. Guitars sound fantastic on these. The really detailed mid-range, coupled with that polite character of these headphones, really give guitars and stringed instruments this richness that is undeniably addicting. Now at first listen, because that bass is always so present, you would almost think that the treble is a little bit rolled off. But after you get used to the sound, you start to realize that the treble is also very well extended, but never harsh. Again, cutting down on any of that vibration that could give you an unpleasant listening experience. These things are made comfortably, and the sound is tuned to just give you that sense of comfort. But again, I mean, that bass really steals the show. And on certain tracks, these things were just super exciting. These aren't meant to be used for mastering music. They're just made to enjoy music. And it's just a whole lot of fun to listen to music on these. While the detail is excellent, especially for a closed headphone, it's not going to be on the same level as an HD800. A lot of people have been asking me, how is this or that compared to the HD800? Let's get into the soundstage a little bit. Now, these are closed headphones, folks, so by their very design, the soundstage is not going to be huge by any means. And these aren't even close to being as wide as the HD800. Now, because of that detail, you do get a sense of wide open space. There is really good instrument separation on these, thanks to that really nice detail in the mid-range. But where I would say they lack in the width of soundstage, they definitely make forward in height and depth of the soundstage. It's really crazy the way the sound is thrown on these. You really do hear a lot of things happening up above you and down below, almost creating like a sphere. So just imagine like a big sphere of sound going around your head. It's really neat, and it actually works really well with movies. Personally, I don't really use headphones all that often when I'm watching movies, but if you watch a lot of movies with headphones, these things are awesome. There was a scene where jets were flying over by, and I swear it sounded like they were flying over my head. It was pretty wild. There was another instance where there was a sample of a dog barking in a track I was listening to, and I actually spun my chair around really quickly because I really thought that the dog was right behind me. So these things definitely throw out a very 3D soundstage. On really well-mastered tracks, it's just a treat. While these do sound as open as any other closed headphone I've ever used, these will never sound as open as a good pair of open headphones. But I mean, that's just by design. Overall, though, I would say that it definitely is a very airy sound with a ton of texture, and the sound is just kind of pouring around your head. And that's kind of the sensation that I get when listening to these. Now, if you were to ask me if I would pick these or the HD800s, I would probably go for these, only because they're so much easier to drive. You could really drive these out of an iPhone or Android phone, although these things definitely do scale up with better amps. Folks have stated that things do improve more in the soundstage department with the balanced cable. I did pick up a balanced cable for these as well. So running these on my DNA Sonnet 2 in balanced mode, the soundstage expanded slightly. I would say that it's there, but probably minimal. Overall, everything just sounds fuller, and everything has much more depth and authority demanding your attention. But it's not going to turn these things into an HD800 in terms of soundstage. Make no mistake about that. So then let's get down to brass taxes, ladies and gentlemen. Are they worth the price of admission? Well, I'd say that's debatable. I guess it depends on where your priorities lie. If you're looking for the best pair of closed headphones you've probably ever heard in your life, these are the way to go. If you want something that will sound excellent, whether at home on your home stereo setup or out and about on your portable setup, if you need a closed headphone and you need isolation, then these will definitely work for you. However, if you don't really need any of those things, if a completely neutral sound is what you're after, these may not be for you. There are other headphones out there for less money that may be a better option. Now, once the prices on these start falling and you can get them open boxed or on the used market for around $1,400 or $1,500, I would say these things are definitely worth checking out if you're really serious about high quality headphones like me. But as a whole, man, I gotta give these things a thumbs up. Actually, nah, man, I gotta give them 2 thumbs up. And like I keep saying, they are the best sounding closed headphones I've heard to date. The Sony MDR-Z1R. Check them out. Make sure you go ahead and subscribe, because I've got a lot more reviews coming, including some brand new headphones. Thanks, guys. Happy listening.